In this video, I'm going to take you through the search for the ideal car. And does that really exist? This is going to be for a daily driver. The car that I have, I'll talk about in a little bit, I've had for a really long time, and it's time to get something different. Hey, I'm Andy, professional performance car driver with a passion for well-engineered cars and driving with friends on mountain roads. On this channel, I share with you my driving experiences and bring you videos on new gear and car reviews. I like sports cars, so to me it's got to be something that's sporty and something that's small and compact and agile. Ideally, this car will have a manual transmission, naturally aspirated or turbo. I'm probably open, I can go either way. Because I have the RS and that is naturally aspirated, I feel like that itch and that is solved for me. So if this other car was a turbo, hey, I'm good with that. Something that I can live with long term. So the car that this is replacing, I've had for 14 years. And there's a likelihood that whatever car I'm going to purchase is probably also going to be around for 10 plus years. So it had to be something that I feel like I could live with. So I was out looking at, there's a new Mark 8 Golf R coming out. It won't be in until about 2022, maybe late this year is a 22. So I was looking at the Golf R, that gets a lot of really good reviews. Being a Porsche fanboy, and you know that, right? Of course, I was looking at the Boxster GTS 4.0, a Cayman GTS 4.0, actually a GT4, but I'll tell you, once I start speccing those cars the way I want them, they start getting really expensive, right? It can add up quick. And then am I going to be satisfied with, getting a lesser variant of that model? That was going through my head. And then the other thing going through my head was, I already know how a Porsche drives. I know the steering, the seating position, the controls and everything. And I was somewhat fearful, because I know me, is if I ended up getting one of those cars that it would feel like the same. And kind of the point of getting a new car for me is to experience something new and something different. Then I started looking at BMWs because I had a BMW E46 M3 back in 2004. And so I said, well, let me take a look at BMWs. Audis, I did a review on the Audi S4, and we'll put a link either up above or in the description below. We'll put a link to that S4, as well as for the Cayman GT4 video, so you can see those reviews that I did. But the S4, while a nice car, again, automatic versus manual. The manual I really wanted, and there's some limitation there, so kind of cuts that out of the mix. The BMW, I was looking at both the new M4 and the new M3. I think the M3 is a better looking car than the M4. I know that front grille is polarizing for folks, but I guess the question I would ask is, have you seen it in person? Issue I have with that car, and I know people, you can put all your comments down below, I don't care, is the weight. That M3 is what, 3,800 pounds? I mean, that's like a beast of a car. I mean, I'm driving the RS that's, less than 3,200 pounds, and then going to a car is like 3,800 pounds. So that was out. Then I found something that really excited me, and that was the M2. So the M2 came out in 2016, then they came out with an M2 competition in 2018, and then in 2020 they came out with an M2 CS. And the CS was a 1 year, was produced just in the year 2020. The notes out there say they produced about 2,200. Nobody really knows. BMW isn't saying. I've heard that there's a couple hundred in the US. I've heard there's maybe 300 or 400 in the US. But the dealers got so many of these cars, and when they're out there, you got them. When they're gone, they're gone. They're not making any more. But what I liked about this car is I love the size. So it was the right size. It checked the box for me on the size of the car. Sporty, checked that box. Turbo, I said was okay. Yes, this is a 3-liter flat 6 turbocharged engine, 444 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. I was like, okay, it's got power and some giddy up and go. And it just seemed to click all the right boxes. I'm saying to myself, this M2 CS looks like it could be the car. The next part is researching the car, right? I had talked about, researching the car on YouTube. I do like the guys at Throttle House. Jacob and Yuri, I think are their names, at Straight Pipes. They're funny, but they also give a critique. They're not afraid to talk down about a brand, what they like, what they don't like. One of my favorites is Moto Man TV. I like his objectivity on the car and what he wishes the car would have or not have in it. Another favorite of mine is Henry Catchpole from Carfection. Evo magazine, so Evo does Evo Car of the Year, and they just completed it, I think it was late last year, early this year, and I think they were the final 3 was the M2 CS, the McLaren 765 LT, and the Lamborghini Huracan Evo Real World Drive. Which was a car I was looking at too. I spec'd the car, etc., but that would have been a replacement for the RS, and I'm really not ready to give up the RS yet for like a Lamborghini or something, so that didn't happen. And then is Harry's Garage. If you like, again, another in-depth review of someone to give you unbiased opinion about a car, watch Harry's Garage. And each of these guys talk a little bit about the CS, and the question being, is it worth more than the M2 competition? I think the M2 competition is in the 67, 68 range, and the M2 CS, most of them were without the ceramic brakes. Most of them were in the 85,000 range, 88 with the DCT, 85 with manual. If you add in the ceramic brakes, that's an $8,500 option. So that takes the manual to 93 and the DCT with ceramics up to like 95. It is a lot of money. Next up is to read online reviews. One is I subscribe to Car and Driver magazine, so I said, hey, let's go out and take a look at Car and Driver. So you can see this one, hey, tested 2020 BMW M2 CS hangs in there. And then they just go through their stuff, right? They always talk about their highs. An angry car designed to make us smile, manual transmissions, BMW's best stuff. And these images look really nice. And some turbo lag, right? I think most turbos, you got to keep the RPMs up high to kind of minimize or reduce any turbo lag. It's not the fastest car in the world from 0 to 60, but I have the RS. If this was replacing the RS, or this was my only car, maybe I feel differently. But as a daily driver replacement, I think I can be really happy with that. So read Car and Driver, then read Motor Trend, right, to see what Motor Trend has to say about the car. I like this comment. Why didn't you tell me the M2 CS is the best BMW ever made? The M2 CS has this adaptive suspension, which is the first time it's ever been presented in the M2. And then the M2 CS has the ability to add the carbon ceramic brakes, which was never an option before. Some of the downsides, you can see it on screen here. I mean, this steering wheel rim is like super thick, so I don't know if down the road I'm gonna have to trade it out. Some said the seats got a little uncomfortable over time. I'm not sure. The seats in the M2 CS are the seats out of the prior generation, not the current one, but the prior generation M4. But they're different than what's in the M2 competition. I kind of like these seats better. I really like the seats that are in the new M3 and M4 competition. And then Evo magazine, says, hey, there's plenty to worry a Porsche Cayman GT4. Maybe, I don't know. I think for me, the difference is and what I've read and the videos I've watched is the M2 CS is probably a little more playful and agile, and maybe you can have fun with it a little more, where I think Porsche's gotten so good at the engineering of their cars, and take the Cayman GT4, is they lose some of their fun and their excitement. So those were some of the things why I was leaning that route. And the way I would configure a GT4, the GT4 would end up costing me $30,000 more. And then last but not least, go out to the BMW website. Again, you can't order these cars. I mean, they're done, production's finished. But anyway, go out to the BMW website and look at their propaganda. Look at their advertising on, hey, why you need to get this M2 CS. This is like the best thing ever. I did look at this Misano blue. I think this color is unique to the CS, but I felt like it was a launch color and everybody was going to have that color. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that color. The thing was really looking for available cars. Since I knew there were only so many of these things produced, I needed to go out and get an idea of how many were out there. So the first place I went and looked was at Auto Trader and cars.com. And when I started my search, there were 41 cars available in the US. So I started going through and I'm looking at for colors. So first out, rule out black. I have a black car, don't need black. Rule black out. Maybe not the Misano blue. So I put that aside. There's only two other colors, Hockenheim silver and Alpine white. And they had a car at Pacific BMW in Glendale, California. So I gave those guys a call and they had exactly the configuration I wanted. It was Hockenheim silver, manual transmission, gold wheels, ceramic brakes. I was like, this is the car I want. So I call them up, hey, the price of that car, the MSRP is $93,095. And I said, it wasn't like, hey, I want to buy the car. It's like, how much you asking for the car? And they told me $25,000 over MSRP. Yes, you heard that right, 25. So they wanted what's that, 118,000? Am I doing my math right? $1,000. And I was like, oh my God. And the salesman said, he goes, well, I know the guy, the dealer, the manager, whatever, wants really like 15, but if you're willing to make an offer for 10 over, I'll be willing to take it to him. So I waited. I didn't get back to him right away. And then I was like, all right, do I need to, me, I don't want to pay him over MSRP. I was like, so I waited. I did some other research. I talked to some other dealers. One was 10,000 over. The lowest I found was 5,000 over MSRP. I did have a friend who found a dealer down in Texas who was offering at MSRP, but they had no cars in configuration that I wanted. So even though you could get it at MSRP, why would I want to buy a car that I don't want? So anyway, this one was 25. I also talked to a dealer in Alexandria, was it Alexandria, Virginia? Where I talked to another dealer and I said, where is this? Yeah, Alexandria, yeah. And, talked to them and they were like, they had a couple of cars, but again, they're asking for over. Then I found a car at Bloomfield, BMW Bloomfield in Bloomfield, New Jersey. So anyway, you just got to go through and you negotiate. Here's the challenge I ran into. A day or two that went by, when I went to call back and talk about that car was gone. That's how fast these things were selling out. So back to Auto Trader, looking through cars, and then landing on a car and going, okay, if this is the car you want, you need to act on it. And there's 22 for sale in the US. And I don't even know, I mean, there may even be less than that. I mean, if I click on new, what does it go down to? 19. So some of those were used. And if I change the transmission here on screen to manual, there are 2. So you get the idea? And there were 8 or 9 just about a week ago. So these cars were moving, and they were moving fast because the whole car market is crazy right now. But the other thing you guys have to remember out there, make a note. Each year, all businesses that give their employees these big annual bonuses, they all have to be distributed by, it's like the second week of March or something like that. So there's this injection of cash that gets into the marketplace through these companies giving out their annual bonuses. So this time of year gets to be really competitive because people who want to buy cars are like, hey, I just got this, check, whatever the amount is, this bonus, I want to go out and buy a car. So I knew I was up against some of that too. So I needed to move quick. So I finally landed on, are you ready? The silver car at that Pacific BMW. When I went to call them back, guess what? Gone. So now the next best car that had all the options except for the color was at BMW of Bloomfield, New Jersey, and theirs was an Alpine white. And after seeing the Moto Man video, the last one he did, and it was in white with the gold wheels, ceramics, manual, that is the exact configuration of the car that I got. So I sent them a note like 9:30, 10 o'clock. You send them on their website. I sent a note and I said, I'm ready to buy the car now, in big caps, NOW. And I ended up getting a call the very next morning from a guy on the car. And I asked them what they were asking for the car. It was listed on the website. They were asking for $20,000 over. So I wasn't going to give him $20,000 over. So I made an offer on the car. I said, here's what I'm willing to pay on it. He says, all right, I'll take it to my manager. And then he came back to me in a little bit with a different number. And, you kind of play around a little bit. And then we landed on a number for the car. And I just said right then and there, deal. Of course, we had to throw in transportation because the car's in New Jersey. I wanted covered transportation to get it down here. So they want to get rid of the car as soon as possible. So this past Saturday, I'm at a cars and coffee meet, and they call me up on the phone and they're like, okay, we're going to get the transportation, going to ship the car down. And I'm like, where am I going to put this car? I currently have 5 cars at my house. I have a 3-car garage. I am looking at getting a lift in one of the bays so I can put 2 cars in there. But I'm like, I have no place to put this car. So I quick get on the call to the folks that are going to do the like the PPF and the ceramic coating. I was like, hey, this is on a Saturday. I'm calling them. Can you guys take this car? Can you hold it for me? And the woman, Jamie, she was great. She's like, yeah. She goes, we have space. We can take the car. Just have them ship it here. I was like, phew. So I got to get back to the dealer. Okay, here's the address. You do it at, etc. So it was just a little bit of a tense moment there while I was figuring out what the hell am I going to do with this car, because I really can't fit 6 cars at the house. I had never bought a car before from out of state. I don't know if any of you have, and you have experiences on buying a car out of state. I'd be curious to hear about them. So, please put it in the comments if you've bought a car out of state, and how did that go for you? So now it's a matter of, how do you close the deal, do all that paperwork, etc. when the car is out of state. Car dealer sends the bundle to this place, and then this place just sends out, like they must hire people locally, pay them X amount of dollars to go out to somebody's house and execute the paperwork. So the one thing they needed was a cashier's check. They weren't going to take a personal check for any money you were putting down or anything. So they wanted a cashier's check. So get the cashier's check. Then you get a call and they schedule a time to come out to your house. They move pretty quick, right? So they were out here on Monday or Tuesday to get out here, and then they go through the paperwork. It was a little different than being at the dealer. Yeah, you still had the same, 35 pieces of paper you had to sell. You had to sign. But you weren't getting the hard sell on the other things. Oh, you want the tire and wheel protection? Although they did call me on that, but it didn't happen at the signing. The one thing that was a little odd was they had to take your fingerprint, your thumbprint, for verification and proof of who you are. Sure, there was the driver's license copies and the insurance card copies, but that fingerprint thing was a little weird. And that's the done deal. So as of today, when I'm recording this video, I'm waiting for a phone call from the person who's doing the transportation on when the car is going to arrive. So stay tuned for part 2 in this series for prep, delivery, selling the car I have, and some modifications on the car. As always, stay healthy and stay safe.